All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking the incredibly paradoxical life of the man who literally invented the modern world. I'm talking about Nikola Tesla. We're looking at the 3 assassinations of a genius. Now you're probably thinking, wait a second, a person can only be assassinated once, right? Well, as we dig through the source material today, a really fascinating and honestly tragic pattern emerges. Tesla wasn't just a guy who lived way ahead of his time. He was a brilliant mind whose entire vision was systematically dismantled. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to start at the very end. How on earth did the inventor of the modern world die totally penniless? On January 7, 1943, an 86-year-old man died completely alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker hotel. He'd been living there for 9 years, and by the end, he literally couldn't even afford his meals. Unpaid hotel bills were everywhere. But here's the truly bizarre part. Just hours after his body was discovered, FBI agents swarmed that room and seized all of his belongings. And you have to think about the sheer scale of what this man actually gave us. We are talking about the undisputed foundational technologies of our everyday lives. Alternating current power, which is running literally everything plugged into your walls right now. He laid the early theoretical groundwork for wireless communication, which is basically what we call Wi-Fi and Bluetooth today. Neon lights, electric motors, X-ray imaging, the first major hydropower systems. Tesla solved massive problems for humanity. In today's world, solving just one of those would make you an absolute billionaire. So how did he end up with nothing?
Let's get into assassination number 1, economic elimination, also known as the War of Currents.
The stakes of this battle were absolutely massive. On one side, you had Thomas Edison's direct current, or DC. Now, Edison had a total monopoly, but DC had a fatal flaw. It could really only travel about 2 to 3 kilometers. You basically needed an expensive power station on every other block, which meant extremely high electric bills for everyday consumers. On the flip side, you had Tesla's alternating current, or AC, and it was just objectively superior. It could be transmitted hundreds of kilometers with ease, and it was vastly cheaper. Edison knew his incredibly lucrative empire was under threat, so what did he do? He launched a brutal smear campaign. He was literally electrocuting animals in public. We're talking cats, dogs, even an elephant, just to convince terrified people that Tesla's AC system was dangerous. But despite Edison's terrifying PR stunts, Tesla proved the safety and the absolute dominance of his invention, and the dominoes really began to fall. In 1888, he signs a massive deal with the industrialist George Westinghouse. By 1893, Tesla's AC system flawlessly lights up over 200,000 bulbs at the Chicago World's Fair. And then, the ultimate victory came in 1895 with the Niagara Falls Power Project. Tesla did what DC engineers thought was literally impossible. He transmitted massive amounts of electricity from Niagara Falls all the way to Buffalo. That's a distance of 30 to 40 kilometers. The War of Currents was officially over. Tesla won.
So the absolutely crucial question here is, if he won the biggest industrial war of the century, why wasn't he rich? Well, psychologists who study Tesla often point to a very specific condition, a messianic complex. Tesla fundamentally believed his sole purpose on Earth was to serve humanity, not to accumulate personal wealth. He famously worked 20-hour days, isolated himself entirely, and even chose never to marry, just to protect his focus on his work. He just wanted to make human life easier, and he completely ignored standard business practices, legal protections, or personal profit.
And this brings us to what is probably the most heartbreaking financial decision in history: $2.50. Under his original contract with Westinghouse, Tesla was owed a royalty of $2.50 for every single horsepower of AC electricity sold. Now, as AC became the global standard, this contract alone would have easily made Tesla the world's first billionaire. But Westinghouse's company fell into massive debt fighting all of Edison's legal battles. George Westinghouse basically told Tesla that the company might go bankrupt, which would kill the AC system entirely. Because of his intense drive to serve humanity, Tesla simply tore up the contract. He surrendered his royalties just to save the company and ensure his technology actually reached the world. But that decision left him entirely reliant on external investors for his future projects. Enter J.P. Morgan. Tesla pitched Morgan the Wardenclyffe Tower, claiming it would completely revolutionize wireless communication. Morgan loved it, invested $150,000. But when Tesla later revealed the true, massive scale of his vision, that this tower wouldn't just send messages, but would actually broadcast free wireless electricity to the entire world, Morgan asked a really chilling question. He asked, "Where will the meter go?"
Realizing he couldn't charge people for free energy, Morgan not only pulled his funding, but he used his immense influence to blacklist Tesla across the entire financial industry. Tesla's economic elimination was completely finalized.
Which brings us to assassination number 2, the physical mystery, centered around room 3327.
The sequence of events here reads exactly like a spy thriller. On January 5th, a Do Not Disturb sign goes up on his door. He's totally isolated. Fast forward to January 8th, a maid suddenly decides to ignore a 48-hour D&D sign, enters the room, and finds his body. Now, here is where it gets highly suspicious. A medical examiner arrived and officially recorded the exact time of death as 10:30 p.m. on January 7th. Ask yourself, without modern forensic technology and with absolutely zero witnesses in the room, how can an examiner pinpoint the time of death down to the exact minute? And remember, within hours, government agencies were already raiding his room.
And the specific agency that seized his life's work makes this even stranger. It was the Office of Alien Property Custodian, or OAPC. Now, this agency was designed to seize assets from foreign nationals who posed a threat. But wait a minute, Tesla had been a full-fledged U.S. citizen for decades, so why them? Well, the source material highlights a massive paradox here. World War II was raging, and the U.S. government was absolutely terrified of Tesla's nephew, Sava Kosanovic. He was a powerful Yugoslavian diplomat with communist leanings. So the U.S. basically bypassed normal laws, using the OAPC to ensure Tesla's potentially world-ending weapon blueprints didn't fall into Soviet hands.
And this fear really centered around the infamous death ray. The government's handling of this created a huge paradox. Years earlier, unable to pay a $400 hotel bill, Tesla had given the hotel manager a sealed box, claiming it contained a working death ray capable of wiping out 10,000 airplanes. After he died, MIT scientist John Trump, who, yes, was the uncle of Donald Trump, was tasked with opening it. He publicly dismissed the whole thing, saying it was just a completely useless 45-year-old electrical resistance box, and the government officially declared Tesla had no viable weapon tech. But they still kept his files highly classified, and decades later, blueprints for a concentrated particle beam weapon were actually found in a Belgrade museum. The crazy thing is, the concepts he described are eerily mirrored in modern military tech, from Ronald Reagan's Star Wars initiative all the way to Israel's modern Iron Beam.
Back in 1937, Tesla was absolutely adamant about this death ray. He stated quite clearly, "It is not an experiment. I have built, demonstrated, and used it. Only a little time will pass before I can give it to the world." And the thing is, Tesla wasn't exactly known for outright lying about his engineering. It really leaves you wondering, did he just put a harmless decoy resistance box in that hotel vault to settle a debt while keeping the real technology hidden? The sheer speed of that FBI raid certainly suggests the government thought the tech was very, very real.
Moving on to assassination number 3, erased from history, the legacy manipulation.
When the FBI raided his room, they seized 80 trunks full of his research, blueprints, and prototypes. After years of pleading from his family, the U.S. government finally sent materials over to the Tesla Museum in Belgrade in 1952. But they only returned 60 trunks. That stark gap of 20 missing trunks remains to this very day. Despite constant requests, the U.S. government refused to return the rest. Even in 2016, a full 73 years after his death, they only partially declassified his files, and they're still citing national security. What on earth could an inventor from 1943 possibly have designed that threatens national security today?
So why is Tesla missing from the textbooks compared to his peers? On one hand, we see innovators like Edison, Einstein, and Marconi. Society celebrates innovation, but it seems we only celebrate it when it aligns with the existing economic order. Their discoveries created massive, controllable, and highly profitable industries. On the other hand, we have Tesla. His innovations fundamentally challenged the system. He wanted to provide free, unlimited energy to all of humanity. He threatened to completely disrupt corporate empires, and the system, it doesn't celebrate that kind of disruption. It suppresses it.
Which makes this quote from Tesla so incredibly profound. He once said, "The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine." He knew exactly what was happening. He knew he was operating way outside the boundaries of what the corporate and political systems of his time would allow. He sacrificed his wealth, his relationships, and ultimately his historical recognition, truly believing that one day the future would finally catch up to his mind.
So I want to leave you with a final, really provocative thought.
If a man who laid the foundation for the entire modern world could be economically ruined, his room raided, his documents seized, and his legacy basically erased just because his ideas threatened corporate profits, what true innovation is being hidden today to protect the existing economic order? Are there revolutionary technologies locked in a vault somewhere right now, gathering dust, just because no one can figure out where to put the meter? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the system, and I'll see you next time.